Okay, so hi folks. Lisa here, and I have with me Elizabeth Tidwell. Did I pronounce that correctly? I
Yep.
did. Great. So Elizabeth is a graduate from the Menstrual Coach Academy, actually a couple of years ago now. And we were chit-chatting over email recently, and Elizabeth mentioned to me that she is facilitating a group program for a bunch of clients at the moment. And Elizabeth also was on the From Pain to Power podcast with me, and we did the episode. I actually have the title here. It's called Reclaiming Body Sovereignty After Institutional Trauma on the 24th of July, 2023. And it's actually one of our highest rating episodes, probably because of the topic. So you're very welcome. It's great to be chatting with you again, Elizabeth, and I'd love to hear just a little bit about yeah, how you're getting on with the course that you're facilitating, what made you decide to do it and how it's going.
Yeah, thank you. It is wild that was like exactly 1 year ago today that I was on the podcast.
Oh, is
It's
it one
crazy.
year ago today?
Yeah,
Oh my
today's the
God,
24th of July.
that is wild. I just didn't even
Serendipitous.
connect that. Actually, yeah, so tell us what's the course you're doing? What's it called and who's it for?
Yeah, so the course is called Sovereign, Menstruality as a Healing Tool for Ex-Mormons. So I am an ex-Mormon, and actually when I very first learned about menstruality work in like 2021, it immediately started shifting my own relationship with my body, my femininity, my like self as a whole. I had already at that point left the religion I was raised in and was kind of in the space of kind of like trying to recalibrate, yeah, my relationship with myself, because so much of uh, how I experienced my body was informed by the religious beliefs. And it's like patriarchy within patriarchy, right? So we're probably all pretty familiar with the impact of patriarchy on our self-concept as women and people with a period, and that I wasn't any different. So as soon as I first started learning about menstruality work, I was like, oh, this matters to people like me who are in the process of looking for something different about how do we recalibrate and rewrite kind of some of these really harmful narratives,
Mm.
um, kind of remove some of the blocks from our relationship with ourselves. So that like I immediately knew that I eventually would create a program specifically for ex-Mormons to help us come back to yeah, a much deeper understanding of our bodies. First, any sort of body literacy around our menstrual cycle at all, and completely help step away from the inherited shame that we received and all these harmful messages around being a female, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. It's such important work, Elizabeth, and I'm so glad that you're doing that niche. Like it's so important and it's so needed. The connection between that type of institutional trauma, people leaving those systems, and then working through the somatics, menstrual cycle awareness. Because even like a lot of the trauma work, it doesn't even look at the nuance of the menstrual cycle, right? And then the impact of female sex hormones on the nervous system, etc. So I can see how that work is so important. So tell us a little bit about yeah, how many people you got on the course? How long is the course? How are you experiencing being a facilitator?
Yeah, so this very first round of Sovereign, I have 8 people in the group program with me, and it's an 8-week course. So we meet every Sunday morning. It's like a new church. It's way better.
Oh, that's so good. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we all happen to have Sunday mornings free now, so
Yeah,
that
no
works.
surprises there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a really I have really loved the community that we've been building, and it's like especially in a group program like this that's like so particular on who is going to be there in the room with you. We all already know so much of each other's stories, and like we all immediately get the context that somebody's coming from. I mean, just this last week on our last call, we were talking about like the mother wound
Mm.
and some of this, yeah, again, this inherited views of our female selves and the expressions of how that presented in each of our individual lives was different, but we all immediately recognized that it was like from this same place. So it's so nice to see, like, to come into community together and just know that you're with people who get it and you're with people who are learning how to recalibrate along with you from the same context that had such a huge impact.
100%. Yeah, no, it's so important to feel like you are understood and seen, and the topic, it's not going to be a surprise either when people come in the room, people are what they're there for, what I'm curious about is because I know there'll be people listening to this who are kind of learning about facilitation and interested in learning about that. Have you had any kind of moments, aha moments, or any challenging points, or like how has it been for you to facilitate? Because it's quite like facilitation, like it's facilitation is one thing, but then you're facilitating a heavy topic is another thing as well, So what has your experience of that been like?
Yeah, I have been very aware from the
Mm.
beginning that there could be so much present for us individually and collectively, right? And I definitely sometimes I feel like this group is like, I feel like they're all very appreciative that I am giving this the weight that it actually deserves.
Mm.
Because sometimes especially in particularly Mormonism, and well, it's probably not particular to Mormonism, but leaving a high demand, very monolithic cultural system and then being on the outside of that, often so many of us received messages as we were leaving that we're wrong, that the things that were big deals to us weren't a big deal and we need to ignore it and go back to church. You know what I mean? So definitely very aware as the facilitator of those kind of messages that probably a lot of us have received, minimizing our experiences. So the very first foundation is like letting people know as often as I can that what they experienced matters, what they experience now matters in sessions together. And like nothing is too big or wrong in how it's coming up for them. So um I haven't really had to, well, we've had a couple of pretty potent moments where some big things were coming up, and it was so nice to be able to together as a group witness what was coming up for this one particular group member. And afterward, like I don't feel like, I mean, felt into the moment and offered whatever support I felt was needed at the moment, and also, like, let them know I'm there after this moment passes as well. But afterward, this group member said it was so nice to be held and witnessed by the group. Like, already how my body was feeling is different. So, and that was like a matter of like less than 5 minutes of just like allowing something to be present, noticing, witnessing, and all of us together allowing that to be present with her, right? So there's so much power in that, and there's so much power to be able to do that as a participant, even the ones who weren't in that hard space.
Yeah,
So I feel like all of us benefited
yeah.
from this group capacity to hold and witness and be witnessed. It was very beautiful.
I love your languaging around that, the group capacity to witness and be witnessed. It's really articulate, and it really speaks to what you're talking about. And I can relate to it as well as a participant and as a facilitator too. And I was going to say to you, even just before you told us the end of that story about how, like, just the languaging you used was to let the moment pass. And very often if we're just out and about in the world or in other, maybe in other group programs that are kind of more mindset coaching based, nothing wrong with that, but it's a different way of working. It can be a little bit like you get coached on those moments, or you know, it's like we need to change what's happening, or we need to fix it, or it needs to come to a resolve. Whereas what I'm hearing from you is you as a facilitator know from learning this in our training and then in other
Mhm.
trainings, to like hold space is about trusting the client or group in their process, right? And
Yeah.
allowing the emotions and the energy to move, and to not be afraid of that either, you know?
Mhm.
So that's why I was like so impressed when we were emailing and I heard about your program, that like I was so impressed by just, you know, it is a big topic. I can imagine it's scary to step into something like that. But like you have the lived experience, now you have multiple qualifications, and you have, you know, now you're getting facilitation experience. You have the skills now to hold those types of spaces, and for people to feel safe in that, and for that energy to, like you say, to move through the group, and to discern, you know, how to work with that. It's a bit of a dark art, isn't it? So I'm really glad to hear that you got that feedback as well, because that I'm sure was very validating for you too.
Yeah, it's so nice. Like this is like such a big benefit of group programs is like it's not nearly so the pressure of one speaker and one listener, right? Like it's different. There's a whole circle and everyone like it just amplifies that power of being held and takes any sort of like I'm now like under no illusions that I have to like fix it right then or like that I alone can do something about it. It's like no, like yeah, this co-created group space is its own thing that offers different medicine than what just a one-on-one can do as well.
And it's like a renegotiation of the the initial trauma, actually, isn't it? Because the institutional trauma and wounds are in group setting. Well, one to one, of course, but like in the group system. And
Yes.
then for you to provide this space where it's you're given the opposite in terms of the power structure and the hierarchy too. It's not all on you. And you, like, if it was on us as facilitators to be the ones to fix the client, then that actually is disempowering in terms of the dynamic and the power exchange. Whereas if we hold our clients and our groups in compassion and trust in them and in their power, they will eventually access it in themselves. And like when it comes to this type of trauma, one of the effects of it is this like chronic shame, you know, and shame thrives in isolation. And so what you're doing is like amazing, that you're getting people to go through these really vulnerable moments, but to feel supported and witnessed, and you know, like he'll get the comfort from the group and the love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And totally get to step into this place where they feel in this group dynamic so different than how we've experienced. Like you, it's not just like thought work, it's actual, like I can feel how it can the full expression of being held in a group in like the most positive way. So getting that experience is sets up such a better pattern to be able to recognize that in group dynamics in the future for
Yeah.
sure. It's like, no, we're coming from a place now where you know what it feels like for all of us to be valued and all of us to be witnessed, and nobody has power over anyone, and like all of that stuff. We
Yeah.
know very clearly it's a very stark difference. And like
And yeah, and you
being
know, we
able
love
to
that in
recognize
the
that.
yeah, in my course, the Menstrual Coach Academy, I'm all about the power, the sharing the power. So it's great that because you got to experience that there in that group. And I love that you're now like giving that experience to your own clients. And it was only probably from actually experiencing that in
Yeah.
my course, and in other courses as well,
Yeah.
that you had a lived experience of that. And then you're like, oh, this is what this feels like. And now you're able to offer that
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yes, because everything, I mean, we know this, but like so much in our culture, and especially like adding this layer of high demand religion, it's all hierarchy, always. There's always a pecking order, there's always an authority. And so, yeah, so me getting to experience stepping out of that for sure set up an avenue for me to see and experience how it can be different.
Yeah, for sure. And like that's to say, like you're still leading the group because I think that there still needs to be a healthy authority, right? A leader in integrity, which is what you're doing. But then yeah, you're like you're sharing autonomy and
Yeah.
decision making and all that kind of thing. Tell me about what I'm curious about. This probably be my last question is given this topic, and then you've got your own family and th other things going on in your life. How do you self-care then through this, and what works for you to help you kind of navigate what you're facilitating?
Yeah. So I feel like I have this benefit that I get to prepare all the material and like plan it all out. So it's been on my mind. Like I said, the topic for years, but the actual nitty-gritties of like what we're going to be journeying, I feel like I'm benefiting so much by digging so deeply to prepare. But then for sure, this is actually also coincided with a huge ramp up in my own self-care practices because I'm like, I know that I have to have the support and the connection and the coming back home to caring for my own body in order to be able to hold this space and also like not allow my own stuff to like, overshadow
Yeah.
how I'm able to show up.
Mm.
So yes, definitely I've been prioritizing sleep, prioritizing nutrition, prioritizing like morning and evening routines, and like really paying attention to receiving. I have noticed that I get so much like I must be in circles where I receive and not just in places where I lead.
Mm.
That has been very clear as I've been leading more and more groups more consistently, is that it's like I need to step into places where I'm not always sure I'm not like the authority when I run these things in the same way as has been modeled, but it still is a different energy that I expend
Yeah.
as the facilitator than as just a participant that gets to kind of receive in a different way. So definitely putting myself in places where I can receive and take the pressure off of myself is really nice to balance this out, as well as just really being very tuned into the messages my body's giving me about how it
Um,
needs care.
Thank you for that. It's so inspiring to hear all of your insights into what works for you and your needs around that. And I love your answer around like being in spaces where you're the client or you're the participant. And I relate to that too. I have spaces like many spaces like that as well, group and one-to-one. And it's a different energy, isn't it? Like letting yourself be held. And like what helps me with that thinking as well is that like in my work, I'm facilitating groups, like even though like it is a big deal and it's an honor to do that, but it's also my job. It's just a job, quote unquote, just a job, but at the same time I do have to do the same and get support and guidance and energy from other places, and then my practices as well. And it does help because I think like for me, and I'm sure you're the same, like one of the most important values that I have as a facilitator is presence. And I think that's what you're speaking to when you're, holding these spaces for this type of trauma. It's hard to be present when we're dysregulated or really like, I wouldn't say tired because it's okay to be tired, people get tired, but kind of like depleted,
Yeah.
energetically, spiritually depleted, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas it
I
sounds
feel
like
like,
you're keeping up your chi, your energy.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like I definitely like on a practical level before every single call, I do lots of grounding exercise. I do some shaking. I make sure that I'm like, I've got at least 10 minutes before the call starts where I can like be present with myself, right? And that helps me a lot to get regulated before I just like, come in and launch and have all this high energy. But I feel like the facilitation actually is very nourishing to me, but it's also very energizing in this way. Whereas what I also need to balance that out is the rest and receive. So I'm like, what are the ways that I can just rest instead of I don't know, it's like this
Or like
machine that
having to
needs
do
to.
a self-care thing, like yeah, I know. And also like for me, it's like switch my head off and engage in stuff not
Yeah.
related to work or self-care or just watch a movie or some reality TV or walking in nature, going for swims, things like that. Well, in Ireland, I'm going for swims in the sea. Um, yeah, well, it's been great chatting to you, Elizabeth. I absolutely love learning about this program. And do you plan on facilitating it, holding it again in the future?
Yeah, I do. I'm actually starting to reach out and kind of make it open for a wait list now.
Mhm.
So I haven't fully decided if I want to run it in the early new year
Mhm.
or probably early new year of 2025, possibly before that. But if this is something that um, resonates with you and you know you need support around this as well, yes, look out for Sovereign Menstruality as a healing tool for ex-Mormons.
Amazing. And what's
Yeah,
your website again? So I pop it in the notes below this video, wherever that video is going to
perfect.
live.
Perfect. It's myclubred.com.
But yeah, great.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Again, Elizabeth was a graduate from the Menstrual Coach Academy. And yeah, it's been really great to stay in touch with you and hear all about the work. And I'm sure we'll have you back to chat about your work again. Thank you.
perfect. Love it. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thank you.